It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's Tuesday.
I'm not ready.
Well, you got to be ready. Yesterday was such a big day. Good morning, Gary, and welcome everybody. And it was such a huge day, changing history forever when Mike Pence announced.
Well, here's what. I by the way, for first-time listeners, when I say I'm not ready, it means there's just so much stuff you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
But I was just before we were going on the air, I was reading this headline from Breitbart. White House claims Biden family business represents no national security threat. So what's the first question you ask?
What family business? What family business?
What business are you in?
Yeah.
What family business?
It's
John Kirby, National Security Council Coordinator, Wilson Audio, coming up later on. For Strategic Communications, denied on. You better be more strategic because you're getting killed the last couple of weeks. Denied on Monday the Biden family business schemes represent a national security threat, despite admitting he had not read the House Oversight Committee report on the matter.
Wait, who was it that did that? Hold on, who went on the Sunday morning shows without reading, and it was only like a 3 or 4 page document? Was it Holder? I forget who it was. And we were like, he went on, like, Meet the Press. Well, have you read the document? Well, it's like, dude, you could have read it in the car on the way over. He hasn't read the report. Okay. Look, I mean, they have a business. They farm a lot of money. That's what they do. They grow money, apparently. I mean, if Hunter could just teach us all to do that. Hey, for everybody who's saying or believes that the White House just has this magic money machine, I mean, they do now.
If we can just tap in to the money earned by the Biden family business, we could solve this debt crisis.
Well, this is going to be a future. Do they still have infomercials late night? I have not turned a TV on to watch actual television.
Yes.
Do they? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And I just switched my, oh my gosh, I'm breaking up with my internet company right now on the air. I just switched my internet so I won't get the free cable channels online, for free because I had it from a cable company. So I won't be able to. But this is the next infomercial. Well, it will happen after maybe he serves prison. Hunter Biden. Hi, I'm Hunter Biden, everybody. I'm going to teach you how to, he's on a yacht and the whole thing. I'm going to teach you how to make money with zero talent, zero skill, and you don't even have to have your own family business.
The one I see the most is the one, the other guy from Home Improvement. And he's, Richard Simmons, I almost said. No, it's not. It's not Richard Simmons, but it's the one with the collapsible hose. They have a new one.
Richard Karn,
yeah.
And
it's the collapsible hose. Now, I have had the collapsible. I've had them probably for 10 years.
Yeah,
and mostly they last about 2 years.
Mine last about a season. I was just telling a plumber at my house the other day about a season because I've got kids and grandkids, so mine get a little more use than yours. But yeah,
well,
that's about right.
It just all of a sudden it blows up in the middle.
Yeah.
And this one apparently has a 10-year guarantee.
Oh.
They've used space-age material.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to save that warranty, right? Where's that warranty information on this hose? Where is it?
I was expecting him to say, we sent a man to the moon.
Yeah. By golly, we can have a hose that lasts more than a year. Well, this is it's funny because I was just the other day I was listening to Tim Allen in the car, his old stuff. I mean, his like early '90s home improvement, everything that home improvement was based on. It was funny, but yeah, you know what happens in those hoses? In my experience, if you don't drain those hoses before you put them up, if you leave them full and they're in the sun, then that water on the inside heats up and it expands. And of course, then, the material itself can break down the rubber material. But, yeah, I haven't seen another infomercial. I would watch Richard Karn. It's probably fairly entertaining.
How do you think I knew about it?
Yeah. You knew you know what? That just hit me. You knew everything about that. You had to have watched it. That's the only way you can know that.
And then they have the guy, what's his name, Sullivan, who used to work with the guy who died of cocaine.
Oh.
Or he died of a heart attack, which one of the causes. I can't think of that guy's name. Remember the guy?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the British guy. I see him still on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sullivan something.
I saw
Andrew Sullivan.
I saw an ad because I was shopping for pillows, and so this ad came up in my algorithm, and it described the product, a pillow, as outrageously comfortable. I thought, who's getting angry that it's so this is outrageous. My wife's like, well, no, I think it means something different than what you talk show hosts believe it means. I'm like, oh, yeah, I forget. Sorry. Force of habit.
Well, interesting day we'll get to. I mean, this was interesting. You had Representative Anna Paulina Luna come out yesterday, a member of the House Oversight Committee, said after being briefed that the FBI is afraid their informant will be killed if unmasked, based on info that he has brought forward about the Biden family. We'll get to that in just a little bit. What I thought from scanning social media as the infomercials were playing on my TV, I was scanning social media on my my phone. What I thought really was interesting was on Twitter, and I went to, this was not even from the national point of view, but I went to a bunch of local TV stations around the country that I follow.
Yeah.
And all of them are in line with Pride Week, Pride Week, Pride Week,
Right.
Pride Week, Pride Week, Pride Week. I have never seen the blowback as I saw the responses. And this is conservative. Probably 8 in 10 were blasting it, and I have never seen this before, ever, in the whole Pride movement. And there was this meme out there, LGB, and then basically, like a slash mark separated from the rest of it. Wow. And we'll have some audio coming up a little bit later on. It's the Twitter site Gays Against Groomers, saying, we've had it with Pride. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done. We're done. We're done. And so it is the cultural wars right now is again, it's not a physical war, but the war that you see right now, the debate and the criticism of where the left has gone is something that has not existed before now.
Well, and this is the New Mexico governor signed into law the other day the ability for children to have surgery. They keep calling it care. It's not care. It's mutilation, and to have abortions without having parents involved. Way to go, New Mexico. Good job.
I mean, at least what you have, though, and we haven't had it before, and this is something that you and I was having a discussion yesterday with a couple people that I know on this, on this topic. And, I said, and you and I have, stuck with this for the longest time, that the insanity of this. I mean, just how insane it is. And I'm going to have to find the audio. I saw it yesterday. In fact, I did save it, but we'll have it coming up. You and I talking about Bill Maher and how Bill Maher, says, I haven't changed. I haven't changed. I haven't changed. Well, let's put it this way. He did not acknowledge for years what the left was doing. And an audio cut I saw yesterday came up, and it was Dennis Prager on with him, the talk show host, back in 2019.
Right.
2019, and talking about the fact of the left promoting the fact that men can menstruate. And they all were laughing and mocking him. That doesn't exist anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's really and they were at that time.
Right.
Because you and I remember it was 2017 when Trump got into office that remember the Women's March happened?
Oh, yeah.
And they were all wearing the pink hats to represent the vagina.
Yep.
And then by the time you got to 2018, there was this huge split in the feminine. And when that happened, we said we predicted this years ago would happen, and that's that the feminist movement, again, would be destroyed if, they jumped into this, just like now you're seeing a blowback from LGB against the rest of the alphabet.
Yeah.
And so by 2018 is when there was the split, and it was like you couldn't wear the pink hat anymore because not just women have vaginas.
Right.
And that was 2018. So it was well known, and Bill Maher was denying that he knew anything about it back in 2019.
Yeah.
And so it just got to the point, they were fine with it until it got to the point of where it's gotten right now, where it is about brainwashing children on sexuality.
Yeah.
That's where it is. Right. And that's finally where Americans said, okay, we had enough. And we've talked about the fact that Americans are, especially in 2023, a lot of them are live and let live, even if they disagree with you.
Right.
You are, if you're a consenting adult, even if I disagree with what you're doing, I don't want the government at your door.
Yeah.
So I may disagree with you on what you're doing, but can't stop it. You are an adult. You've just brought the children in. And I saw the former Target executive say the same thing. Target doesn't even realize what they did. You brought children into it. That's what you did. And now the pushback is like, I've never seen as much pushback as I've seen over the last couple of days on Pride Month.
Well, and that's the whole thing is that it's not Pride Month anymore.
That's a great point.
It's Transgender Month.
Yep.
It's not a pride flag. It's a transgender flag. That's just the way it is. We've been saying it for years, and there could have been, I don't know, we didn't hear a lot from people who pushed back on the idea. But if you had any doubt along the way, if you listened to us long enough, next month, 18 years as a team, you've been doing it a lot longer. You started back when was it still Morse code? Was it start out as Morse code?
The telegraph lines were set up.
Yeah.
I used to hang around the Ponderosa, and me and little Joe and Hoss, we would,
Gary, get this response quickly to the other ranch.
Yes, before radio began, and then it was the Radio Express. I'd jump on a pony.
Express.
And I would be screaming all the news out there. Yes.
And you were saying it back then. That for the LGBTQ, and people didn't know, they thought you were bad at spelling back then. It's like, why is he trying to spell something? We've been saying this forever. Yeah. It's not just about this. It is with the left today. At some point, even if you're on the left, you're going to become the oppressor. Because the far left has built out this world where every day you wake up and they're teaching every generation to be a victim for a different reason. The same person have a different reason to be a victim tomorrow. Then you have the subgroups splitting off over and over again, which means everyone outside of that new subgroup is the oppressor, even if you were on the same side before. The point is, it doesn't matter if you're on the left. I mean, look at AOC. These are her constituents were shouting at her recently. There are people on the left. She's going, I don't know if she's the oppressor yet, but it's happening, and it's certainly happening in LGBTQ. There's no doubt. And T is taken over, and you need to sit down. wait, don't sit down. Silence is violence. I don't know the rule book because I didn't write it, but this is the world today. You're the oppressor if there's any dissent whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the mob will come after you. And this is where, I think it's very important. We brought it up. We played the audio from Senator Tim Scott last week. We talked about it again yesterday and how the left has gone after, and it really started with the identity politics. You pointed this out decades ago with the left going after black conservatives, saying, that you basically they came up with the term Uncle Tom. In the case of Senator Scott, they actually still call him today. Openly, they call him, and on the airwaves, they call him Uncle Tim.
Yeah, he was on.
Tell me how that is not racist.
He was on The View yesterday. We'll have some of that audio coming up, too.
And it's so important to pay attention to this discussion and those points that he's making, because it's exactly the heart of what's going on right now with the far left.
866-90 Red Eye.
Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. When talking retreads, sometimes there's worry when it comes to wear. But just because the tread is worn on a tire doesn't mean the casing is. Quality casings can far outlive their original tread. And once they're on your vehicle, the tread on a retread can last just as long or longer than the tread on a new tire. The key to preserving casings, whether new or retreaded, is regular tire maintenance checks. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. The show just continues.
we actually
no, but
we had to stop talking the talk or the discussion we were having during the break so that we could pause and go back on the air.
No, but just you were just saying. You just looked at me and said, Gary, what the hell's the end game in all of this? And you said, besides, brainwashing the kids, maybe that is the end game. Maybe the end game is if you can convince society that you can brainwash kids and young, children, in essence, can as New Mexico passed, that they, with obviously a mental disorder. This by the argument made by the liberal, radical transgender activist movement that don't you realize you can't even ask questions on this because 25% of transgenders commit suicide attempt to commit suicide? Well, then you got a major problem there. There's a mental health crisis here. And to sit there and say, okay, we enable children to do whatever they wish to do. And when it comes to mutilation is one of the most perverted things. It's what New Mexico did is one of the most perverse things I have ever seen in American history.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is. That's how perverted and evil these people are as to what they're doing. And this is the mainstream. It's not the mainstream of the American public.
No.
I don't believe it's even the mainstream of the Democratic voter.
Right.
But it is the mainstream of the Democratic Party on a national level.
Yeah, it is. And it's, again, the far left is moving forward. This action by the governor in New Mexico signing this into law the other day.
Yep.
It is not the end of this. This is just the beginning, and it is far from over.
You're a threat to democracy if you don't download our app, Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. So this story, we got so much to cover here, but trying to get at least all the important stories out here to start the show.
Yeah.
A member of the House Oversight Committee alleged Monday that the FBI is afraid that the informant accusing President Biden of having been involved in a criminal bribery scheme with a foreign national while vice president could be killed if unmasked. Just left a meeting for House Oversight. The FBI is afraid their informant will be killed if unmasked based on the info he has brought forward about the Biden family, said Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, wrote on Twitter following a closed briefing by the FBI for the committee. When reached for additional comment, Luna told Fox Digital that the FBI worries were alarming and scary. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer and the FBI did not immediately respond to Fox's request for comment on it. Comer and Chuck Grassley were approached by the informant last month, alleging that the FBI was in possession of a document dated June 30th of 2020, which explicitly detailed information provided by a confidential human source alleging Biden, while serving as vice president, was involved in a $5 million criminal bribery scheme with the foreign national in exchange for influence over policy decisions. The FBI confidential human source has been used by the Bureau in multiple investigative matters dating back to the Obama administration, is highly credible, a source familiar with the matter told Fox News Digital last week. The source also told Fox that the confidential human source who provided the Biden information to the FBI was a pre-existing FBI source who has been used in multiple investigative matters separate from the Biden information, going all the way back to the Obama administration.
Yeah.
Comer said Monday he will begin the process of holding FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress, despite viewing and being briefed by Bureau officials on the subpoenaed document that alleges Biden's involvement in the scheme. According to Luna, the committee will hold a contempt hearing for Wray on Thursday. We're going to be bringing the FBI director in before Congress for contempt of Congress proceedings, as he is still conniving to shelter the Biden administration from its own sickening corruption. The FBI said the move is unwarranted because the Bureau has continually demonstrated its commitment. You know, I was reading from Andrew McCarthy and, from National Review, and Andrew McCarthy, if you look at it, he wrote the book Ball of Collusion.
Yeah.
Not really a Trump fan.
Right, yeah.
You know, he's not I don't believe he's a Trump fan. I don't know politically what he is. I mean, I've never seen him talk about who he votes for. You would sense that from the things he said, he would be, that he probably would vote Republican. But then again, you hear Bill Maher talk today, and you're like, well, yeah. If you heard Bill Maher for the first time, you'd say, oh, he must be a Republican.
Yeah,
and he's not. But one thing Andrew McCarthy is, and you and I we closely watch these people and observe these people and what they write. And Andrew McCarthy is somebody, and you've seen him on. I don't know if he's a Fox News contributor, but he's on Fox. You'll see him on Fox News.
Yeah, a lot.
He is a former federal prosecutor who gives a great insight about what federal prosecutors look for. And as he said, the FBI has no ground to stand on here. Whatever Congress wants. Congress created the FBI. Congress has oversight over the FBI. The FBI actually, as he said, can't say, well, we legally don't have to give this to you because of sources and methods. It's up to Congress to decide whether they release it, not the FBI.
Right.
And so if Congress wants to blow the case, they have the authority to blow the case. That even saying that it's investigative, whatever, doesn't hold water. That's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says Congress created the FBI, and therefore Congress has oversight and can see what they want to see, especially these committees that have top secret clearance.
Right.
And it's sort of been turned into the fact of the FBI stating, well, no, we're not going to give this to you because of sources and methods, or we have an investigation going, so we're not going to give you anything.
Right.
And if you've seen in this administration, they use that excuse a lot.
Yep.
Sorry, it's being investigated. We can't give it to you.
Right.
Sorry, it doesn't hold any water. So when you look at all of this here, I think the only thing that came out yesterday was you saw Jamie Raskin came out and said, well, it's hearsay. It's somebody telling somebody something. I go, well, what he's saying is this FBI agent has an informant. And the FBI agent, this informant told him this.
Yeah.
And that's hearsay. Well, no.
That's not hearsay.
It's not.
That's a witness.
Now
there's a difference between hearsay, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but there is a clear difference between a credible witness and hearsay. Now, a credible witness will be required to demonstrate that credibility.
Right.
And so somebody who, if they have an informant and that person is going to be a witness and then the agent is going to be a witness, all of this, is not, look, you can poke holes in it, you'll know right away. Saying it's hearsay, this is exactly, by the way, what they have tried to do before. The one hearing, I think it was last month, where they were saying, well, but we don't even know if this is real, and the Democrats were just basically trying to shut it down before it began. And with something this big, that's your only game. Potentially, this is the biggest presidential scandal in history. If it's not, it's not, but that's because the evidence will fail. And so let's walk through this process and be meticulous about it. And the American people have eyes in these oversight committees, and we have the right to get this information and make sure that this process the whistleblower process is respected, it is maintained, the integrity of that process is maintained so that all of the evidence can be preserved and that the people involved, the ones fearing for their lives, can be safe.
So here's where we are now, because you got the Raskin thing, and then you have Luna coming out, Representative Luna, and saying that the FBI is scared. Let me just make sure I get the quote exactly right here, that the FBI is afraid their informant will be killed if unmasked. Did the FBI say that to them? And does that mean now? And they have said, you saw the also thing came out of it is the allegation has not been disproved. That also came out yesterday.
Well, that's what we see. This is when we talk about the process where we go through any whistleblower complaint, I think they call them, or allegations, whatever. The report goes to the IG, and the IG responds according to the rules within 30 days to say, okay, there is we've acknowledged that we've received this. And then the IG department goes in to determine whether or not there's anything there. Because, I guess you want to rule out the possibility of somebody just being disgruntled and it all being false and wasting the resources at the agency and all of that. But this is why we keep asking the question about the IG. Where's the IG on this in terms of the whistleblower process? But, that's a great question that you had on, did the FBI actually say that? Are you is there a document? Or has someone said in a hearing behind closed doors, a meeting or anything from the FBI that the informant fears for their life? I just want to be. It's very careful about. We have to be very careful in the when we talk about oversight and people on the Hill serving in office. The hyperbole is very real, so that needs to be eliminated. don't use those words if those words weren't used in speaking to you or the committee. That's why it may seem like we're splitting hairs, but it's important.
No, it's important because the last thing I don't want what the Democrats did from the Republicans.
Exactly.
Which is claim, now they claim generically, for example, for years that Trump was a traitor to the country.
Right.
They lied about it.
Right.
The campaign was set up by Hillary Clinton. What I want is, I want to know, number one, why they can't tell us more. When Jamie Raskin came out and goes, there's nothing there because it's hearsay. It's like, no.
Well,
and when she comes out and says that the FBI is afraid the informant could be killed if unmasked, well, the Republicans should together be stating that, not just one person on the oversight committee.
Right.
Comer needs to by now have commented on it.
Yes.
Is this true? I want things to make sense. When the Republicans do it, I want it lined out, and I want the questions that I have that I don't believe are even too probing at all,
right.
To be answered.
Right.
Did the FBI say that they're afraid of that the informant could be killed, and is that because they believe there is legitimacy to this particular charge, or is it related to another case? And if the informant comes out, that there's another case because he or she has been working as an informant for the FBI, is highly credible, and do they not want that person's name exposed because it was this case that they believe is legit, or it was another case that was legit and people went to jail for it?
Right.
Or foreign countries or something was that. And so you need to answer that. Just don't leave me hanging with questions.
Right. And it seems like every day that we walk through this, we add a few more questions.
Yeah.
And for the GOP, I don't expect Director Wray or the DOJ or any of them to give us any answers. This is the whole point of oversight, and Comer is leading the charge here, along with Grassley, and I think it should be explained. Look, write a piece at foxnews.com, whatever you have to do, but set the landscape properly as to where we are. Maybe somebody in the media can reach out to them and do the interview. I don't know, but it's not on the media to do it. It's on them.
Well, or if they have the hearing and he's before Congress this week, then you make that in your opening statement. Mm-hmm. Here's what we know. You told us that this has not been discredited.
Right.
So you've had 3 years to look at one allegation. One allegation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you're telling me after 3 years you don't know whether it's true or not,
right.
but it can't be discounted?
Right.
If the money was transferred, you know that what money Hunter Biden got.
Right.
And what the family got.
Right.
You haven't done the tracing on it yet. You're the damn FBI.
Right.
You're telling me 3 years has gone by, and remember, that's just from from when this document apparently was updated in 2020.
Yeah, right.
Remember, this all happened when Biden was vice president years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, the investigation began on all of this back in 2018.
2018. So we're looking at 5 years on an investigation.
Right. And you're telling me on one allegation. It's not like what John Durham's job was to tear apart the entire enterprise of something and find out what was going on.
Right.
You're asking for, and if I'm unfair, if there was something I don't know, then tell me there's something I don't know. But the other thing is the media isn't asking these questions that we're asking.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of my thought when I said maybe somebody in the media can reach out to Comer or Grassley. But honestly, those questions need to be answered, and there needs to be a more fluid line of communication from the GOP that is heading this.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. Well, Comer was on Fox News last night and had some updates that we'll have. He says it goes back to at least 2017. And he says that this informant was paid a lot of money by the FBI because he was so credible.
Wow.
And he had the same question. If it's been going on since 2017, what's going on with the investigation? Apparently, he hasn't got an answer from the FBI in that one. So we'll get to that and more coming up. Plus, Tim Scott was on the View. More on Pride Month coming up here. And Gavin Newsom, the story is saying that, did Gavin Newsom imply that he's going to charge Ron DeSantis in Florida with kidnapping because another plane of migrants landed in Sacramento?
Right. Yeah. All right.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, 86690 Red Eye. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. All right.
What you got?
Let's get right to it. This is James Comer on Fox News last night talking about what they learned from the FBI meeting yesterday.
Okay.
This particular document was dated in 2020, but there are notes in the document that date back to 2017. We believe that this human source initially informed the FBI of the bribery scheme back in 2017. So my question to the FBI was, what exactly have you done with this accusation? Because the FBI admitted that this is a highly credible, in fact, one of their most highly credible human sources. They admitted that they had paid this source a substantial amount of money, and he had been a part of the Bureau for 13 years, dating back to the Obama administration. And their answer to me, Sean, was, well, it's now a part of an ongoing investigation. We don't know which investigation. We don't know when the investigation began. All we know is 2 weeks ago, they tried to act like this form didn't exist. And here we are today with the FBI bringing the form to the House of Representatives.
And that's it. There were really no follow-ups,
Right.
to that. Later on in the interview, Comer just went through what he's been saying for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And the fact is, I already know that. My question would have been to James Comer, well, why are you going through this? Why are you going through this whole process to hold him in contempt of Congress? Is it because that this is all part of the whistleblower process, and if they give you this unclassified document, then you can present it to the American people, or you can at that particular point move forward in the whistleblower process? Is there something that if you get the document, that this investigation can be accelerated forward? Or is this simply got nothing to do with that? It's simply a separation of powers issue, and you've asked for it, you want it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
You know, and the FBI is supposed to give it to you.
Right.
What is this about? And nobody asked that question. That's the first thing on my mind. You and I have talked about this a long time ago. In the media, a lot of times, it's not whether you have the answers. It's if you're asking the right damn questions.
Well, and also, if you're making the right moves on a situation like this, and I know that there are only so many moves that Comer can make, but the idea is that, you know, if it is simply procedural, then just say, and by the way, it's warranted, and say that, and say, all right, this is a procedural issue. We're not getting the response, and we have that oversight. The role of oversight is given to us and by law, and we get to do this. But also, you have to explain beyond that why the process is important and say, and we're not doing this to do the push and pull political game. This is a very, to me, I don't see how there isn't greater urgency in the media on this outside of Fox News. And I don't expect them to set the world on fire trying to track down the truth in liberal media newsrooms. I'm not naive, and I'm not new to this. But shouldn't there be just a little more curiosity? Because either way, your liberal agenda is working as an activist in a newsroom. If that's who you are and where you are, then you're looking to disprove this whole thing. We haven't seen, we repeat this every day, but it should be repeated. We have not seen any leaks from these inside sources that the liberal media has, I don't know, in countless numbers at all the agencies. Where is that real teardown article of this whole thing saying this whole thing is bogus, it's wrong, blah, blah, blah? We're not seeing that. There have been a couple of attempts by the left, but no real defense of Joe Biden. Where is Director Wray a few weeks ago stepping up to the podium? And if he's not going to do it, then the AG, Merrick Garland, stepping up to the podium. These allegations are false. Where's Kirby the other day instead of going, wow. And then Jean Pierre,
Jesus.
Jesus, and that's a quote. Yep. And hesitating. If I'm the spokesperson for a president and I knew they were innocent and this whole thing were bogus, you wouldn't get that question out of your mouth before I shut you down. The president is innocent. You didn't see that from Kirby.
No.
And you're not seeing it from anybody in the administration. That right there was somebody kicked them in the stomach. That moment was having their breath taken away because they don't know how to defend it. But I just did it. And even if you're lying, you can do that and step up to the podium and say the president is innocent. These charges and the poll that you're quoting is a great indication as to what we have been saying, and that is the level of misinformation that is out there in today's society. People are misinformed, and it is quite tragic. This president is innocent. I did that off the top of my head, and you and I have done that repeatedly. They're horrible at their job, but nobody is stepping up and defending this president. And why is that? Because maybe, just maybe, this thing is the mammoth that it just might be, or the allegations point to.
Well, again, you're going back to 2017. As Gomer said, you're talking 6 years. 6 years, remember, this is one specific allegation. From what we know, this isn't like Trump colluded with the Russians. Now, try to find out how he colluded with the Russians. It's not a generic statement.
Right.
This is a specific allegation of money being transferred to the Biden family from a foreign entity, and then what the result of that was, what Biden gave that particular country or foreign entity in return for that money.
Yeah.
If it's been 6 years, has anybody in the Biden family been interviewed by the FBI?
Right.
And remember, Comer came out and said yesterday, they said it has not been disproven. After 6 years? One allegation? Again, it doesn't pass the smell test. That's the problem. It doesn't pass the smell test. And so even when Jamie Raskin came out yesterday and said, well, Basically, it's hearsay evidence, which means the informant told the FBI agent, therefore it's hearsay.
Yeah.
That's what I got from it.
Yeah.
Because he didn't get into specifics.
Right.
He didn't say, well, no, the informant heard this from somebody else and then told this somebody else.
Right,
But
right.
even if the informant did, he's credible when he brings these things to the FBI, so he must have thought that was a pretty trusted source.
Well,
So even if that's the case, even if that's the case, that the informant got it from another witness and they're calling that hearsay, which in essence that isn't even, because that's a informant being paid by the FBI getting this information from what he believes is a trusted source and then passing it on to an FBI agent. Well, then if you investigate it and you automatically say, well, there's nothing there because it's hearsay, well, then how come the FBI after 6 years hasn't discounted it and said, well, no, there's nothing here because it's just hearsay?
Well, and, to be very clear, hearsay would make a difference if we were that far along in the investigation or in a court case, in a criminal court case.
Yes. Right. Good. Great point.
If it's hearsay by a witness on the stand, that's one thing. But hearsay in this case still matters, even if it is hearsay. And the reason is because you want to vet that out. And then again, that should make it to anyone who's saying it's hearsay or that this is nothing, then we should do the thorough investigation and it won't take much taxpayer time or money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then do it. And vet it thoroughly. You don't shut the door before it's over. In court, there are things that might not be able to be used.
But
we're not there yet.
That's not where you're at.
That's
you're
not
talking
where
about
we
right.
are. So it might be hearsay. Prove it.
Yeah. Well, tips.
Yeah. Right.
Police departments, investigators go on tips. You don't even know whether that's hearsay or not.
Right.
An anonymous tip told us.
Yeah.
And so we decided to investigate it.
Right.
So, again, that's really, if that's the best that Raskin has in his response to it, oh, this is hearsay, so there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody buys it. The American public doesn't buy it.
Right.
We've seen the polling. And so I just wonder, when does the media cover this when the Republicans are holding hearings with, on contempt of Congress with the FBI director before Congress?
Mm.
It's supposed to happen this week.
Yeah.
We're supposed to start on Wednesday, tomorrow.
Yeah. Right.
And so does the media start covering this in a much more intense way?
Well, I guess, that goes back to my question a minute ago. And where is the greater curiosity? Again, I don't expect them to do all of the bogus work, which wasn't work, that they did on the whole Russian hoax thing. They put a ton of energy into that. Just be curious for a minute and look at it for what it is. But if you're not a journalist, then you don't care, and I'm not talking to you. But if there are any journalists left, are you curious? At least a reporter at the Washington Post,
the American public is,
who brought a story like this would likely make a young reporter would likely make their bones at with a story like this, because potentially it is the largest presidential scandal in American history.
Right. We know the money transfers to a vice president's family because is unprecedented. I've never seen that in American history.
Right.
And again, the entire question would be, what business are you in?
Right. Well, everybody in the media left the media, lost their ever-loving mind because some people from other nations played golf at one of Trump's courses. How about this? Just look I don't know where it leads. I can't tell you. But with all the countless sources that the liberal media has, what we haven't seen is the leak that destroys this whole thing, the whole narrative from the perspective of the allegations and Comer and the whistleblower and everything else. We haven't seen that.
You haven't seen source stories saying this is false.
Exactly.
Which you can get away with, which they did during Russia collusion.
Yeah, it's
stories were made up. Sources came up that were made up and said, this isn't true, this isn't true. You haven't even seen that.
Danchenko even got to get drunk doing it, being a source.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays, also the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella with advanced synthetic technology. For more information, go to overdriveonline.com to the Overdrive's Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on Business 101 and many other topics.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We have a really interesting week coming up here. I mean, it really is going to be fascinating because one of the things is the media, even though the people of the United States know what's going on, the polls show it. And when you have the lack of media coverage of the Biden family enriching itself and the media, the way that they have avoided covering it, yet the people know. There's eventually going to get to a point, and we have talked about CBS, how CBS is starting to cover it now with Catherine Herridge over there, who used to be with Fox, the only journalist at CBS.
Yeah. Since Dan Rather left CBS.
Right, exactly. Very good. Yes, since Dan left. And so or Bernard Goldberg. And it's going to be fascinating if they start holding hearings on Wednesday. I mean, I don't know when Ray would have to come in, but I did see a few articles saying Ray will be in this week.
Yeah,
and they'll demand he come in and testify in the contempt of Congress hearings because he's the one the contempt's going after. Now, will he not come in and therefore be in contempt again? Double secret contempt.
I would think that what would help his primary contempt case would be showing up, but then doing those are things that I can't talk about. I can't talk about that. That's an internal investigation. That's a official investigation. That is and you'll just hear the blah, blah, blah from him. However, I don't know. That's one way to do it. Or it could be a no-show. Because the idea of the contempt thing is that it's going to have to go to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. And then the U.S. Attorney is, I believe, bound to hand it over to a grand jury, and they'll see if they take any action from that. I don't know how long the grand jury would take with something like that, or if they would, what the outcome would be. But if Director Wray is otherwise, again, he brought the document, and then he's going to show up and do the blah, blah, blah. He's cooperating, and we plan to keep cooperating if they believe that would have any influence on the grand jury. I don't know.
I think that's why they did it.
Yeah. No, I think that's
Right.
exactly why they did it.
Now, the interesting thing is the other question that wasn't asked was you've seen you and Grassley have claimed you've seen the document.
Mm-hmm.
Was the document redacted, and did anything in the document that was redacted give you an indication that the FBI is attempting to hide something?
Right.
That question wasn't asked yesterday.
Right. Did you learn anything new, either about the case? I mean, if they've seen the document, the idea would be to let other people on the committee see the document, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then have that discussion. But how much was redacted? Do you believe it's key points? Were you able to make that comparison based on what you've seen before? Again, a lot of questions for Comer.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. Eric and I just both looking here, trying to figure out that when they may start proceedings and the hearings on the, I almost said impeachment, the contempt of Congress charges against FBI Director Christopher Wray. And Comer said Thursday. I thought someone said Wednesday. I'm looking here. I don't know if it was Luna who said Wednesday.
His statement said they will initiate hearings on Thursday. Maybe there's something procedural on Wednesday they're doing.
Oh, no.
Or
She says Thursday, too.
Okay.
I don't know where I got Wednesday from. So we were trying to clear that up during the break.
Yeah, right.
And it said this is one of the days where the show never ends. It just continues.
Well, and so much is on stuff like this is really, in the entire news cycle is really fluid. So, yeah. All right. They'll meet Thursday, and we'll see where that goes on contempt.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Moving on. Tim Scott on The View.
Yeah. Wow.
Let's just play some audio, okay?
Okay. All right.
Just let her roll. Here we go.
You bet.
Okay. Senator, I am actually happy that you're here. We have some things in common. You grew up in a single-family household, single-mother household. I grew up with both of my parents, but raised in the Bronx projects amidst a lot of poverty and violence. And you are the first black senator elected in the South since the Reconstruction. That would be about 114 years. Yet you say that your life disproves leftist lies. And
Yes.
My question to you is, I'm the exception, right? You're the exception. Maybe even Miss Whoopi Goldberg is the exception.
Oh, she's definitely the
but we are not the rule. And so when it comes to racial inequality, it persists in 5 core aspects of life in the U.S. economics, education, healthcare, criminal justice, and housing. At nearly every turn, these achievements were fought, threatened, and erased, most often by white violence. You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism. What is your definition of systemic racism?
Let me answer the question that you've answered.
Or does it even exist in your mind?
Let me answer the question this way. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not actually. It's
been 114 years.
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is, we've had an African American president, African American vice president. We've had 2 African Americans to be secretaries of the state. In my home city, the police chief is an African American who's now running for mayor. The head of the highway patrol for South Carolina is an African American.
Still exceptions.
In 1975, there was about 15% employment in the African American community for the first time in the history of the country. It's under 5%.
40% homelessness.
And 50%
of African Americans,
50% of the folks in our community
get 13% of the population.
You had the chance to ask the question. I know that I've watched you on the show that you like people to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the same thing.
That is true.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest the fact of the matter is that progress in America is palpable. It could be measured in generations. I look back at the fact that my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, when he was on a sidewalk, a white person was coming, he had to step off and not make eye contact. That man believed then, with some doubt now, in the goodness of America, because he believed that having faith in God, faith in himself, and faith in what the future could hold for his kids would unleash opportunities in ways that you cannot imagine. Every kid today can look, just change the stations and see how much progress has been made in this country. ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN, CNN, Fox News all have African American and Hispanic hosts. So what I'm suggesting is that yesterday's exception is today's rule. And for us to suggest... So
America has met its promise.
No, of course, the concept of America is that we are going to become a more perfect union. But in fact, the challenges that we face 50 years ago and 60 years ago should not be the same challenges that we face today. And here's the way that you measure that. When my mother was born, about 10% of African Americans got a high school degree, diploma. Today, it's over 90%. When you look at the income, success that we've had...
That's an HBCU stat.
Well, listen, HBCU stat is a good one, because one of the reasons why I took the funding for HBCUs to the highest level in the history of the country, and then I helped make it permanent, is because I believe that education is the closest thing to magic in America. So I'm about making sure that our kids have as many opportunities to succeed as possible. It's one of the reasons why...
I need an opportunity to succeed.
Okay, and then they had a break. They had a break at that point. Look, here's the thing, I understand where he is going. It's tough when you start, the whole argument is about semantics.
Yeah.
You're the exception. It's not the exception, it's the rule. What does that mean? And he did bring it up. He goes, well, look, every generation has improved, and that's where you want to go.
Every generation has a first.
Right. Every generation has a first, every generation, and that's where we're moving. But when it comes to systemic racism, I would say absolutely it does exist. And it exists in liberalism with identity politics and judging people by groups and not individuals. It exists in the Democratic Party. It exists in the liberal black leadership of this country that we talked about yesterday, for example, when we talked about the NAACP putting the travel advisory out, not to Florida. And then the National Review article that went point by point by point about how successful blacks are in Florida as compared to liberal states in this, in the United States. And so you look at it and you say, is there progress being made? What the left wants you to believe is that racism is worse than it's ever been before.
Right.
And that is blatantly false. Systemic racism does exist, but it doesn't exist where the left is telling you. They're the ones where systemic and institutionalized racism exists. They're the ones who identity politics attack conservative blacks and have been, as I said, when I became a talk show host in '89 and you saw the infancy of the modern talk radio movement. Can you believe that I could actually say that? I started in the infancy of the modern talk radio movement.
In the pre-modern talk era.
and that was after the post-fairness doctrine elimination.
Right.
Because before that, wasn't really a lot of politics being talked about because it was more interviews or whatever.
Boring.
Yeah. Let's go to Joe in Poughkeepsie.
Let's go to Poughkeepsie.
He's doing Larry King.
Poughkeepsie, you're on the line. When I was in the Rat Pack.
I used to do Miami Dolphins football.
Yeah.
No, it's
the great Larry King.
No, as I've said many times before, it was listening to Larry King
Yeah.
when I was working third shift at Worthington Compressors in South Buffalo in running my big machine. And before every, and I know it was tape delayed. He ran 3 hours and then 3 hours again.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really on overnight.
Right.
But I remember him just, interviewing people, and I went, wow, this is really interesting. And, the thing that really, the best interview I ever heard him do? Phyllis Diller, the late Phyllis Diller. She was absolutely hilarious. I mean, she was so self-deprecating.
Yeah.
I mean, she was so funny. But I remember thinking to myself, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could do that someday. That's what really, put the spark in, to me. And at that point, he was much more of an interviewer than known as a liberal when he later on, especially in his last hour, would do it. But it's interesting because one of the people that was involved in the beginning of us at Westwood One, Dennis Green, was also worked for Larry King.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and we keep in contact with Dennis.
Yeah,
on LinkedIn.
Exactly. Yeah, he's doing well and a great guy as well.
Yeah, and so and he likes us.
He does,
and so we compliment.
He's one of the few, but he likes us.
That's where I think the conservatives have to say, look, systemic racism does exist. It's the identity politics that you practice. It's judging people by groups. It's saying that all blacks must think alike, that if you're a conservative black, you've somehow betrayed, your race by saying, I'm autonomous. My skin color does not define me. And then the left screaming, yes, it does. And with critical race theory, where your white skin defines you. It is the absolute most blunt stereotyping that leads to racism. It's racist stereotyping, and it's practiced exclusively, and it's mainstream in the Democratic Party. That's one thing that I would talk about.
Right.
There's been major improvements, but where there are not been improvements, and interestingly enough, when Sonny said, well, it's because of white man violence, and where did that white man violence come from?
The left.
The left. Came from the Democratic Party. Came from the Democratic Party. That is the one institution that was that influenced racism and Jim Crow laws more than any other institution in the United States. It was the Democratic Party. And so you need to, if you're going to go on, and I think he did a great job, but for me, you got to blow him out of the water. You got to blow them out of the water. You are the people that are racist. You're the ones that practice identity politics. You're absolutely right. Systemic racism exists in this country, but it's not the people you're blaming. It's you.
Right.
And, but overall, I mean, I think as a presidential candidate, I think he did a really good job.
Sure.
Saying, look, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. They know that, when anybody comes, racism is worse than it's ever been before. No, it's not.
No.
And what you have to do is, and we've seen it, another example, not just the NAACP travel advisory, which was just embarrassing, but what we saw in Georgia.
Yeah.
With the whole Major League Baseball moving based on a lie from Democrats that the new election law was Jim Crow on steroids. That's where racism exists today in this country. This is where race baiting exists. What Biden and the leadership and the mainstream of the Democratic Party did in Georgia was what white supremacist group leaders have done. You lie about race in order to enrage people against each other based on skin color. And as we have stated that many times before, tell us where we're wrong on that Georgia election law.
Right.
Democrats got burned. Democrats lied. Democrats want, and I'm talking about maybe not the rank and file, but the national party wants racial strife based on lies.
Yep. No, it's everything right now for them is about division.
And then I would also get into talking about the fact of why are Democrats against school choice when black parents are not? Why don't? In these schools that are obviously failing, it's the Republican Party. When it comes to, and we know you all of you on The View are anti-gun, even though you have your own private armed security, most likely. But the fact is, it's the Republicans that have defended and have pushed to have law-abiding citizens that live in the inner city be able to have the same Second Amendment rights to protect their own life. And I've always used this. If the Democrats don't care about your life and they don't care about your education, then please tell me what they care about.
What do they care about? What are they promoting? What do they care about?
Right.
What really is their passion?
Keeping you in the pathology of dependency. We give you stuff, and if you vote for us, we'll give you more stuff. That is a progressive that is actually a progressive and productive ideology to hold in the United States. This argument is easy for Republicans to win.
Yep, every time.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, the story came out yesterday that the Trump attorneys met with the special counsel at the Justice Department concerning the documents investigation. And all of a sudden, boom, it came out, it was all over the place that, are they going to indict Trump this week?
Mm-hmm.
And the story came out, well, that's why they let Pence go. Even Andrew McCarthy mentioned it. And it seems like they might be setting the table to indict Trump because it's like, okay, Pence can go, and that legitimizes that we're not going after all Republicans, just Trump.
Right.
And, you and I talked about the fact that the CNN story last week that nobody has disputed, including the Trump campaign, that a video exists, or the audio or video, I forgot what it is, exists of Trump talking about the fact that he's got a classified document about, the United States if we went to war with Iran, and makes it clear that, according to the story, that he said it is classified and he took it.
Yeah.
And his claim is, no, he declassified everything before he left the White House.
Right.
And CNN's making the case that the audio that exists or the video that exists make it clear that he doesn't. We said it at the time. That's a problem for Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going much further than it ever should have.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Good morning. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
As mentioned, Andrew McCarthy before. He also did a column on Department of Justice Pence decision lays groundwork for excusing Biden while prosecuting Trump.
Yeah.
All three men have violated the letter of the law, but only one of them is in danger of indictment. Heading into the weekend, the Biden Justice Department quietly advised attorneys for former Vice President Mike Pence that the investigation of his criminally negligent mishandling of classified information has been closed without charges. The decision and its rationale lay the groundwork for prosecutors to close without charges the investigation of President Biden himself for his criminally negligent mishandling of classified information. In stark contrast, the Biden Justice Department appears primed to prosecute former President Donald Trump for criminally mishandling classified information. The different treatment will be explained away by framing Trump's misconduct as obstruction rather than a document retention case. It will also be prosecuted by a special counsel, Jack Smith, whom the Biden administration and its media allies will pretend is independent of the Justice Department, even though Smith reports to Biden Attorney General Merrick Garland and exercises executive power as a delegate of Biden himself. According to CNN, the letter provided by the Justice Department to Pence's attorney was terse. The former vice president was advised, quote, the FBI and the Department of National Security Division have conducted an investigation into the potential mishandling of classified information. Based on the results of that investigation, no criminal charges will be sought. Nevertheless, CNN and Pence's advisors, who have been in regular contact with investigators, let me see. Although he initially blasted Biden when the latter's illegal hoarding of classified intelligence came to light in January of 2023, Pence, then planning the presidential bid he will announce this week, quickly realized he better tend to his own glass house. Upon his instructions to aides that they should search his Indiana residence, about a dozen classified documents were found, as well as other Trump administration records that should have been turned over to the archives. Here's the main point. Upon finding these documents, Pence's team immediately notified NARA and the FBI. The former vice president caused all of the records, including the classified ones, quickly to be returned to the proper government repositories. Moreover, Pence voluntarily consented to FBI searches of his home and private office so the national security agencies could be confident that there was no continuing threat that defense secrets could fall into the wrong hands. Like Biden, Pence has maintained that his possession of classified intelligence after leaving office was inadvertent, the result of sloppy process, not intent to illegally retain documents. None of this is really a defense under the Espionage Act, as it's written through law, and he goes through the entire thing there.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the Espionage Act is rarely enforced as written. Indeed, the Obama administration effectively rewrote the statute in order to avoid indicting Hillary Clinton. The FBI's then director, James Comey, dubiously maintained that no reasonable prosecutor would charge Clinton over her reckless mishandling of top secret intelligence because there was no intent to harm the United States. This echoed remarks by then President Obama. It was a straw man claim, though. Other provisions of the Espionage Act address dissemination of national defense information with an intent to harm U.S. The provision that was pertinent to Clinton and is pertinent to Pence, Biden, and Trump deals with a very different issue. Government officials who violate the trust reposed in them by exhibiting gross negligence, not bad motive. These officials are given privileged access to the nation's defense secrets based on their agreement to abide by stringent rules for the safekeeping of that intelligence under the statute. Their lack of willfulness is not even relevant. And with Hillary Clinton, we know that she put the server in her home. Yeah. She went outside the system also to avoid the Freedom of Information Act.
Yep.
And at the same time, by doing it, didn't care about our national secrets. This wasn't inadvertently bringing something home.
No.
Of course, the statute can only be enforced by the executive branch, the same branch whose officials typically violate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Privately grousing that the protocols for safeguarding sensitive intelligence are overly burdensome. Ergo, the Attorney General declines to prosecute, rationalizing that the official involved, frequently also a member of the incumbent administration, did not act maliciously and cooperated with the FBI. The cozy arrangement suddenly became inconvenient in 2021. That's because Democrats regard Donald Trump as evil, to whom precedents and norms against prosecution must not apply. This was the Biden Justice Department poised to indict him over his document retention at Mar-a-Lago, notwithstanding the fact of the Clinton case, which included destroying thousands of documents, consequently obstructing a congressional investigation, and giving some absurd answers when questioned by the FBI. But Biden's lawless retention of classified documents threw a wrench into the works of the plan to prosecute Trump. Now it is established that Biden's offenses go back decades to his time in the Senate, when he had no reason to possess sensitive intelligence in unauthorized locations, because senators are only permitted to peruse such documents in approved secure government locations. And Biden was so reckless that classified documents had been located in several of his private unauthorized locations. Then along came Pence, the choir boy whose violation was discovered right after he posed as a guest that Biden could have stashed in his home classified information that he'd been trusted with as vice president. Suddenly, the Hillary precedent was not the only problem. How could the Biden administration follow through with the plan to prosecute Trump when it obviously was not going to recommend that Biden be prosecuted? It would be a potentially untenable to prosecute Trump unless prosecutors could spotlight some aspect of Trump's case that distinguishes it from Biden's. As I pointed out, that's why they're going after the obstruction case rather than the retention of classified documents.
Right.
And that's the thing that I saw the other day from the CNN story. If that exists, if that tape exists, a videotape, whatever, of Trump stating that he has top secret material when his first defense was, I declassified everything, that's going to be a tough one. And it's the same as nobody believes that Biden, if you see the polls. Now, I don't know how that would go in actually a trial, but I know in public opinion, that changes things. When a person admits, if this exists, as CNN said it does, and I've not seen the Trump campaign, the Trump lawyers come out and say that's false, his tape doesn't exist. I wonder if that tape and CNN story is why they went to see how serious this everything is right now against their client. That's why the attorneys went the other day. That would be the difference that they would highlight between Trump and Biden. Well, we really don't know what Biden was doing yet. We haven't interviewed him. We don't know what happened, but we know Trump, what he did, because here he is on tape stating that I have classified information, and this is about if we go to war with Iran.
Right. Yeah.
When he had stated he declassified everything, and his statement there is saying that he did not, and that's where they're going to try to prove obstruction.
Right.
He knew it. He said something else during the investigation. That's obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
And as I said with Biden, and I don't know whether it'll go in court. Who knows? I don't know. But in public opinion, those kind of things will sway people, as you saw with Biden and influence peddling. When it came out, when that voicemail came out, that Biden obviously was leaving a message for Hunter Biden, knowing what his business was, claiming that he didn't know anything about it. And then more emails that came out that showed Biden obviously knew about what he was doing. Then at that particular point, the public says, okay, this stinks, and Biden obviously is involved in some type of illegal influence peddling, because that's what 53% of Americans believe right now. That's the problem. There's nothing like video or audio.
Well, and, Trump's attorneys, basically rushing in, that's quite often an indication that something's about to go down. They're either making a last-minute plea to, hit the brakes, or they're there to bargain in some way. And the question is, how far do they go with this at the Justice Department? Look, politically, this is a different thing. Politically, Trump will use this to no end. But the problem with that is that he's got to get through the primary. And depending on how this is laid out, the question would be, how is it going to affect the primary? Because you got to get through the primary first. I don't know. I don't know to what extent. What did they raise? They raised. I forget what it was, but he raised a few $1 million in the days after the raid on Mar-a-Lago. I don't know if that sentiment is still alive. If that it helps him politically, he will use it politically. They're coming after me. They're coming after me. They're coming after me. That's different than the case inside the courtroom. That's different than the actual case. The political part of it is separate. And we'll see what the political effect is But his attorneys are obviously very concerned here, as they should be, because it shouldn't have gone this far. I said at the bottom of, I think, last hour or going into one of the breaks earlier, it shouldn't have gone this far because on every level, it should have been handled much better by Trump. None of this had to happen. In terms of the documents that were there, this would have been over and done. It probably wouldn't. It would have made the news because the liberal media wouldn't be able to help themselves if it got out. If it were just, oh, okay, yeah, I got these documents, and he handed them over the first thing. But as this thing went on and on and on and on, there were so many missteps. Don't trip yourself up.
Here would be the thing that I would see in court that Trump's lawyers would use, because this is the big question. Why would Trump do it?
Right.
There's no accusation that he was selling these secrets to any other country.
Right.
Or that he was using it for any nefarious thing.
Right.
It was that he had a disagreement with them. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, even if it's just a disagreement, if you're caught in a lie on video, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That, to me, would be the problem. But then again, you still have to say, well, what was his intent? And I know that has nothing to do with the law.
Right.
But you're saying this isn't about the law because you're saying Pence, even though he broke the law, we're not going to prosecute. And Biden, again, because there were so many that went back so long, how can you say that there was not some attempt there, especially when they were strewn and found in separate different places?
Right.
How can you do that? And you can't justify it with Republicans, especially after what Hillary did, because we know Hillary's attempt. Hillary did what she did in order to sidestep the Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
She put a server in her home. That was premeditated.
Mm-hmm.
Trump's may have been a response afterwards, but hers was premeditated, knowing the top secrets would go through her server, and the intent was to avoid the Freedom of Information Act, which is one crime right there, and the Espionage Act is the other crime.
Right.
As we stated.
Right.
And so that's what you can't, that is what you can't, you're never going to be able to justify that with Republicans. They're never going to buy into it because they're going to say, okay, there's two separate levels of justice. One for, and who knows what this, eventually they'll come out with Biden. I don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know there. But for me, the one thing that hurts Trump is if it's true that, and nobody's denied it, that this video exists of Trump saying, basically acknowledging that he has top secret material, and it's the top secret material about if we went to war with Iran. And he had said previous to that actual tape, or he had said that, you know, not previous to the actual tape, but his argument was, no, I declassified everything. Mm-hmm. And then that video makes it clear that he knew he didn't declassify everything. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to turn that into obstruction of justice.
Yeah,
but
it will depend on how it's worded. And look, you're going to you put this before any jury, you know, inside the Beltway or near the Beltway.
Yep.
You're going to have liberal jurists that are foaming at the mouth, you know, on something like this. So it's going to be much harder for you. But we'll see where it goes.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Yeah, so that's what that's what I believe they're going to use. I mean, when CNN had that last week, I went, "Uh-oh." And I actually said to myself at that point, "Okay, they're going to indict him based on that." Then now we can justify obstruction of justice because we have Trump in his own words saying something different than he said before.
Yeah.
And therefore, when he said that, that's the proof. We have him saying, nope, I declassified everything. And then we have him on this video saying he did not declassify everything and he has his top secret document. And I think that's what they're going to use as the evidence. And basically, the witness against Trump will be Trump. And that's how they'll try to sell it. It's not going to work with Republicans because of the Hillary Clinton thing and because of Biden and everything still going on with Biden. They're going to view it. But I'm just telling you what I believe they are going to do.
Right. Well, and look, in an era where the Justice Department is going after parents for being concerned about their children in school, I wonder if they believe, if there's any belief that, well, you could motivate the political base even further for Trump if we go after him fully on this. Look, Trump is going to use it that way. But I wonder if anybody at the Justice Department has heard from anyone at the White House.
Well, if they bring it up at the end of the week, the next week and a half, that's all the talk will be about.
Yep.
And the Comer investigation of what's going on with the Biden bribery will go into the background.
Mm-hmm.
So you also have that.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see where the whistleblower will still be in play. I mean, there are so many different little details of the whole document thing. I think it was an indication the news that came out over the weekend, they're closing the case on the Mike Pence classified document thing. Was there ever really a case? But after that, it was clear, all right, they're moving on to something else. And it's not the Biden document case. So we'll see where it goes. I'm interested to see if they indict. I really want to see the charges that are brought, based on what?
Call in and get a word in edgewise. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And don't forget, download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. As I said, yesterday was really an amazing day on social media. I'd never seen it before. All the talk in the media, hyping up Pride Month and all that. And the responses that I saw on social media, I've never seen such a backlash against the Pride movement. And just so people think, well, it's homophobia, it's almost all targeted at not adults doing what they wish to do, but the targeting of children. Yeah. There's a group out there, Gays Against Groomers. And this came out from the Arizona chapter. I think it was yesterday. And these are members of the organization, talking about the fact that they're leaving the Pride movement because of it. And here we go.
As a gay man, I'm done with Pride because it's gone from being a movement to empower a disenfranchised minority to forcing the most grotesque things down the innocent throats of the public, man, woman, and child, who must conform or become bigots.
This is Avani. The reason why I'm done with Pride is because I'm tired of the sexualization of children. I'm also tired of the eroding of basic biology. I am a trans woman, not a woman, and there's nothing wrong with that.
As a gay man, I am personally done with gay pride events until they can get their act together and stop having children at these events with full-grown adults being naked. I will not attend any one of these events anymore.
And more here. Here we go.
My name is Mickey Cutler, and I am done with Pride as a lesbian woman because I'm absolutely sick and tired of the LGBT community pushing their agenda onto children. Let kids be kids.
I'm done with Pride because it's become a public display of debauchery, and I don't know why anyone in the gay community would want to be associated with it anymore. It goes against everything we fought for.
As a gay woman, I'm done with Pride because nothing at Pride represents my values. Nothing at Pride represents who I am as a person, and I refuse to let other people sexualize my identity and turn me into a caricature of a gay person.
You didn't see this a year ago.
No, you didn't.
And if you've been a long-time listener to the show, and this goes back a decade, at least, where we had said with the liberal transgender activist movement that it would destroy the liberal feminist movement and it would tear apart the gay community. And you're seeing it happen now. What I didn't see, because that was basically based on the fact of biological men should be competing against biological women. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought it would be. I never thought that they would stoop to the absolutely perverted and disgusting grooming of children and promote it as something that mainstream, where the fact where New Mexico just approved of it officially. It's just, I mean, these people are insane. I mean, absolutely insane.
Well, because, look, I haven't read the entire law now, and that is now in place in New Mexico. But you can bet that the agenda, next step is to, because it allows underage children to get this surgery, and abortions, by the way, without having the parents involved. It's on the books. The governor signed it. And the next step is to, if you try and get in the way as a parent, abusive, you don't have any rights in that room with that doctor as a parent? You don't have that? Well, then who has legal guardianship on medical situations? I can't wait until this law in New Mexico is challenged. We'll see where it goes. But think about this. The next step is to say that if you're a parent, if your child wants this surgery in a state like New Mexico, again, this is, as far as I know, not in the law right now in New Mexico, but this is part of the agenda. You as a parent can't get in the way, and if you try, they'll come up with a punishment for you. If they're willing to do that and make that law in New Mexico, then they're willing to legally go after you as a parent. We told you. We said this a while back, months ago. Because the narrative is, if you try and step out in front of it, or if you have a conversation at home, which is none of the business of the state or any school administrators or anybody else, if you're having a conversation with your child about this and you tell them you disagree, you don't want them to have the surgery, they will tell you, the agenda will tell you, that's abuse. Mm-hmm. It's only a matter of time before they write that law officially. And don't scoff at it, because then you would be saying it's not true what the governor of New Mexico signed into law just the other day.
You know, it was fascinating because I had never seen this before. You know, at times, you know, there's a number of issues that you and I have sat here and said for years we felt like we were alone, mm-hmm. that we'd be focusing on and said this is what's going to happen. and even most conservative shows were not touching it.
Right.
And, we'd get the response, oh, you guys, the slippery slope. Well, we're down the slippery slope and off the cliff.
Oh, yeah.
And everything that we said would come true has come true.
And further.
And further, yes. And further than we actually thought that it was going to go. So to see yesterday the response and what I did was, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, I was going through all local media. This wasn't like a national thing. I'm going through because I started noticing that all the local TV stations out there were talking about Pride Day, Pride Day, Pride Day, Pride Day. Every single one of them, well, maybe not every one of them, maybe not Sinclair stations, I don't know, I didn't check. But I noticed that so many, hundreds upon hundreds. So I started going to their Twitter sites where they posted it to see the remarks. And I would say conservatively, 8 out of 10, just people furious at what is going on right now.
Yeah.
And I had a discussion with this about this yesterday with a couple of people that I know, because this has come up in their family and they wanted to know, what I thought about it, the whole Pride, thing. And they knew about the transgender movement stuff of it, but they were afraid that other people did not understand what was actually going on here.
Right.
And I said, look, I mean, Eric and I, we've been on the forefront of this. This has been one of the top topics on the air right now. It probably is the number one topic.
Yeah.
Not that there's other ones that aren't close, that aren't close, but this is the number one topic because it involves children. And it is so incredibly reprehensible that when we play the audio cuts from, Gays Against Groomers, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
We're not about sexualizing children in any way, as we have stated before. And it's a small number of people on the left, because I don't believe the majority of Democratic voters believe in this crap.
No, I agree with you.
But the National Democratic Party and places like New Mexico and other states that are passing these laws saying that a child is a victim, and therefore these are legit medical procedures where the insane leftist politicians are attempting to play doctor, is one of the most reprehensible things, because it involves children and mutilation of private parts by children. And the National Democratic Party, this is mainstream. They are for it. It is so reprehensible and disgusting. And that's where we are right now as a country.
Here's the headline at CNN. Make no mistake. The far left, including the far left at CNN, are hailing Governor Grisham. She's a hero to them. Here's the headline. New Mexico governor signs bill protecting access to reproductive and gender-affirming care into law.
For minors.
This is no parents in the equation. This is unreal.
Yep.
This is unreal. Let me see if I can get the two different descriptives here that I was telling you. So here it is from Fox News. Just so you know, here's one. There are two similar paragraphs in the coverage from Fox News and the article over at CNN.com. Here's the one from Fox News. Gender-affirming health care is defined under the New Mexico legislation as psychological, behavioral, surgical, pharmaceutical, and other medical treatment for distress caused by a person's gender assigned at birth, not matching the gender with which they identify. Now, again, that's defined, as they wrote it at Fox News, defined under New Mexico legislation. you head over to CNN. Here's a similar but also far different tone on that same idea. Gender-affirming care is medically necessary. They're just stating that as fact. Evidence-based care that uses a multidisciplinary approach to help a person transition from their assigned gender, the one the person was designated at birth. You mean through science, CNN? You mean through biology? To their affirmed gender, the gender by which one wants to be known.
Well, you see, I mean, that's where they're trying to play both sides of the game.
Yeah.
By saying, oh, that was your assigned gender by somebody else.
Yeah.
And now that gender is different than sex.
Right.
Well, no, you can't make that argument anymore. You've made the argument that sex is gender and gender is sex, and that's the whole backing of biological males or biological females if they say so. Therefore, they should be able to compete against women. They want it both ways. I mean, the logic here is so insane. I was thinking about that on the way to work. I went, my God, I can imagine sitting in a room saying 10 years ago, here's what we're going to attempt to sell, and everybody laughing, going, you can't sell that. Well, we can if we intimidate people and name call if they don't agree with us on it. And if we lie about what we're trying to do, and then we demonize people who are against us as transphobic, homophobic, whatever, use the phobic word, we can intimidate people into believing the big lie.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't know what the end game is here except for full control and continued mutilation in some cases of children.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. There's so many legal questions you and I were talking about that New Mexico law that would allow young people to decide to mutilate themselves if it's about gender transition, and brings up so many questions that on a national level, what is the age of autonomy?
Right.
Because if a child can do this and then get a tattoo, if a child can do this, why can't they do any other thing that an adult can do?
Right. Right. I mean, if you're going to take the authority away from the parents, then, I mean, that does happen in when Child Protective Services shows up and a child is being abused. So does the left now want to move on to just taking full authority where the state moves in and says, well, you can't do that because we think that's abusive?
Or you mean like probably 10 years ago in the state of New Mexico, if a parent tried to mutilate the private parts of a young person,
right?
That the Child Protective Services would probably intervene at that point.
And the doctor would go to prison?
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. As always, I'm just reading this here. Biden laughs and smirks as the press is ushered out of the Oval Office without questions. Wow.
It's what's interesting is the head bump last Thursday after the fall.
Mm-hmm.
The head bump coming off of Marine One. When he was coming, once he got off Marine One, he was walking across the lawn. I didn't hear quite everything that he said, but it sounded like something to the effect of, "Yeah, I can't talk, or I can't do questions, or something." Something to that effect, and I thought, "What? Now he's just looking at them and telling them." But at the correspondence dinner, he made a joke about it.
Mm-hmm. And they all laughed.
Yep. How's that working out for you, liberal media? Now, for the liberal media that's assigned to the White House, does it make things easier or more difficult? I would think it would be easier to get the talking points every day and then turn them around, type them up, and send them to your editor. That would be easier than having to do something else because they don't give you anything.
Well, if you notice, they don't answer any questions. So when you really don't answer questions,
mm-hmm.
How can you write a story?
Right.
And if they don't answer the questions, how can you come up with your talking points? Because the talking points are a defense against the accusations against you.
Right.
And that's one of the problems that they have.
Yeah. Right.
They don't answer any questions.
Yeah.
In fact, when you think about it, most of what we cover from the White House with Karine Jean-Pierre and even Kirby is the fact that they're not answering the questions that they're asked.
Right.
Or it's, wow, Jesus. That's a quote, just so people know. That's the kind of stuff. Or Karine Jean-Pierre is horrible at not answering a question because she makes it so obvious. It's like, well, that's not the question. That's not an answer to the question I asked. Well, that's my answer. Well, maybe an answer, but it's not an answer to the question that I asked. Maybe an answer to some other question.
Yeah. It may be something else.
Maybe something else. But and so it's obvious when they don't answer questions. So that's a problem. When you don't have any talking points against the opposition, mainstream media doesn't know what to do.
Yep. I mean,
they've got to sit there and go, oh, okay, wait a minute. Some blog called Mrs. DeSantis Walmart Melania. That's it. That's our talking point for the time. All right, everybody, Walmart Melania. As if that's going to have any effect.
Yeah, I guess.
It's like, okay, stupid name calling again. That's
mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was a talking point. We got a talking point. All right. Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. But, they're furious because they get no talking points. Remember, they're political activists, and their only goal is to push a narrative that is false. They expect that false narrative. If they come up with it themselves, they can be accused of lying. If they parrot what the administration says, they're simply covering what the administration says and highlighting the defense and not the actual argument against it.
Right.
Come on, people. We've been here for a long time. We know what's going on. This isn't hard.
Nope.
I like this story. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals president Ingrid Newkirk said she updated her will to include a request for her flesh to be donated for a human barbecue.
Well.
Flesh is flesh, and mine is given, not taken, Newkirk said.
Is it legal?
The thought of carving up human flesh for steaks might just be a thing to jolt diners into kindness.
Or to make someone really hungry It just depends on if you're into cannibalism or not.
Well, again, we go back to Seinfeld and Newman.
Yeah.
When Kramer baked himself in the sun.
Oh, man. That
was an
the
uncomfortable...
special effects.
But that was an uncomfortable episode.
The special effects of Kramer as the turkey.
Yes.
Forever etched in my brain.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. Just weird.
So that's what's going on in PETA today.
All right, good.
In other stories here, billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk says it's just a matter of time before Target is hit with legal action from investors as the retailer continues to shed value amid controversy over its Pride merchandising decisions. In response to the news that J.P. Morgan Chase had downgraded Target's stock from overweight to neutral last week, Musk tweeted, "It won't be long before there are class action suits by shareholders against the company and the board of directors for destruction of shareholder value."
Yeah.
For not living up to your fiduciary responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's really interesting is, and there's this case, and then there's a case in Oregon. You saw where the Oregon Attorney General wants to go over is doing an investigation of the Fox board. They're thinking of suing Fox.
Right.
Why? Their pension fund had hundreds of thousands of shares of stock in Fox News Corp. So what they're saying is, since the board allowed them to lie about what happened during the election, they hurt the stock value of Fox and therefore hurt the shareholders in Oregon for the pension fund, where a significant portion of those people are liberal and believe that a fiduciary responsibility should not be the top item of any company, but ESG should be. I mean, it's just a bit.
Well, and like, then, through this, also, you're telling the people with those pension funds they own part of Fox News.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest takeaway for me on that whole thing. I don't know.
Well, we had said,
could you argue in the counterpoint here? I mean, if you leave out the lawsuit, if you leave out the payout, but the intent was, what we tried to do was appease their viewer base,
so we didn't lose an audience. That's
so
what
that
they said,
we
right?
don't lose our base.
Right.
We weren't trying to do that, but one huge check later.
Well, this is the one thing that will kill wokeness, and that's the litigious society that we live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, it's like everything has consequences. And if your goal as a company is to promote a political agenda and not what your fiduciary responsibility is by law to make a profit, there's going to be lawsuits.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's probably going to be a never-ending line of lawsuits, on a number of fronts, but especially after the whole settlement thing. That settlement, my gosh, the next lawsuit should be on the other software company, should be starting. When did they say? I think they said,
I forgot about Smartmatic, yeah.
next year, but Smartmatic issued the statement the day that the settlement was announced. They said, well, this opens the door for us. I'm way over paraphrasing there, but that's basically what they were saying in the statement, is that we plan to move forward. This is not going to stop us from our lawsuit, and they're going to move forward with it. But I think it's down the road a little bit.
So we would just advise Target not to sell PETA human flesh.
Well, again, may not be what I'm looking for. But where's the love for the cannibals? I mean,
no, we haven't degraded down to talking cannibalism.
Look, if we're going to be diverse, you may not be a cannibal. Okay, fine. Someone else might be.
We need to respect everybody's viewpoint must be respected.
Hey, Larry. Good to see you, neighbor. What are you grilling up over there? Bob. No. My name is Jack. No, I'm telling you what I'm grilling up over here. I'm grilling up Bob. Okay, there. Remind me to never talk to you again. Also, hey, my house is for sale.
The other, don't check the basement. Wow. Oh my gosh, the biggest put down I've seen this on memes a bunch of times, and it says the biggest put down right now in 2023.
Yeah,
your daddy buys Bud Light from Target. I swear, I've seen it like 10 times in social media.
I'm on a group text with a bunch of buddies that I've known since grade school, and one of them the other day was like, "Man, I dropped my phone out of my vehicle somewhere," because I mentioned I got a new phone. Man, I dropped my phone a while back on I-35. Dropped it out of my truck accidentally. I have no idea where it is. I said, I found it. That's funny. I found your phone next to an unopened case of Bud Light on the freeway right there. Wow. Yeah, the memes are endless. Yeah. I will take my time now going through the meat department at the grocery store. I know I follow Chef Andrew Gruel on Twitter. I don't know if he's ever offered that recipe on his social media videos. He does a lot of cooking, as you can imagine. Not sure that dish has ever been on the menu.
Well, I mean, it's tough to keep PETA in the news. You know, you've got to do something more outrageous. I mean,
that's what I was going to say.
The milk stuff just doesn't cut it anymore.
That doesn't work,
Right.
you know, throwing the red paint on the fur. And when's the last time anyone wore fur to be, you know, fashionable? Even faux fur. Faux fur is not even
less
worn.
Less is more, though. I mean,
Right,
look at
yeah.
Lizzo, for example, the singer.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, they're just wearing strings now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Cher started that back in 72.
Because
problem is she's still doing it.
Because all human bodies, irrespective of body type, are beautiful.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Since we're throwing out the horse manure, why not get?
Well,
hey, I lived on the beach.
Yeah.
I lived on the beach in Navarre, Florida for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
I saw people on the beach. And at that point, when I became an advocate for not topless beaches, but for men putting their tops on. I realized at that point the vast majority of human bodies are not attractive. And that was from keen observation and research, closely watching over 3 years. Stalking on the beach. Being a beach stalker for 3 years. I stopped.
Yeah. Yeah.
The human body is not attractive. Well, the vast majority are not attractive.
Which is good news, because once you realize that at a certain age, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Now, I still don't take my shirt off when I take a shower. But you know, you see a lot of older people that are they walk the beach and they're out there going, I don't care. This is not.
Well, yeah, and I should make this clear. This is not a judgment of others. The judgment started with the mirror and me.
No, that's my biggest.
Let's make this clear.
Biggest problem.
I only judged others after I judged myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are Red Eye Radio. We're against murder. What else? I forgot. And we're for fully clothed people.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, I've had a surgery before, and it's like, you know, you're gonna have to put this gown on, and it's like, yeah, and then they come back, and it's like, not over your clothes. Sorry.
That's the thing about getting older. You can work out. You know, I'll work out like a fiend for a couple of weeks, and you know, I mean, just continue. I always work out and everything else. It's like, boy, I'm really looking good. Going to take a shower. It's like, you got to be kidding me, God. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I've worked so hard.
Why? What
there
is
seems
this?
to be no results at all.
What is this?
Is that a human being in that mirror?
And by the way, this is why when we get old, we say, well, see, this is where vanity goes away. No, it's pretty much where it dies.
866-90 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. There are 4 factors that contribute to total stopping distance: perception distance, reaction distance, brake lag distance, and braking distance. In order to determine total stopping distance, you must add together all 4 factors. The perception distance for an alert driver driving at 55 miles per hour is about 60 feet. The reaction distance at the same speed is also about 60 feet. An air brake lag of half a second will account for another 40 feet, and braking distance of a heavy vehicle with good brakes is about 170 feet. This means that in ideal conditions at 55 miles per hour, the vehicle will travel about 290 feet and take between 6 and 7 seconds to stop. Higher speeds increase the stopping distance. Note that this example is an estimate based on ideal conditions. Total stopping distance can be affected by many factors, including fatigue, distractions, and weather and road conditions. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. Said a Republican congresswoman yesterday, the FBI is afraid that the informant could be killed over Biden family information if unmasked. That was really interesting. We'll get to that and more coming up. 866-90 Red Eye.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I want to play this audio cut because I just happened to see it yesterday. It just happened to come up on the Facebook Reels, just going through my normal stuff. You know, like seeing about our family reunion coming up and things like that. And I was like, oh, wait, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And it relates to Bill Maher. And you know, we've talked about the fact that, you know, Bill Maher now, you know, looks at the the Democratic Party and says, these aren't my beliefs anymore. I don't know where they came from. And we said, well, they all came from identity politics.
Yeah.
They all came from that. They all came from the liberal transgender activist movement. We know where they came from. You and I have been talking about this for years. And, Bill Maher now saying, well, defund the police. Nobody was ever talking about that before. The liberal transgender activist movement. Nobody was ever talking about that before. Well, because there's a timestamp on this particular audio, understand this is 2019. And Eric and I know for a fact that it was widely known that you had the feminist movement with the huge split in 2018 because during the women's, what do they call it, parade, whatever they had, and
March,
the Women's March in Washington, D.C., there was a split that year because all the women weren't wearing the pink hats,
right? Because
not all women have vaginas,
right? It just imploded right there,
right? And then it got to the point that men can menstruate. That was the next thing that came out of it all, because not all women have vaginas, men do too. And therefore, menstruation is a part of what men can experience. And this goes back to, just listen, 2019. It was obvious. It was mainstream at that point.
Yeah.
And you and I know, based on the timeline of covering this for as long as we did. Listen to Bill Maher's response and the guests. And this is the well-known talk show host and columnist Dennis Prager talking about this back in 2019, and everybody like, we don't know what you're talking about. Listen to this. Here we go.
One who says a man cannot menstruate is considered transphobic.
I missed this whole story.
You did? I
did.
I agree.
Now tell me where you're getting this.
Just Google it. Can men menstruate?
Who is saying this? You're talking about a very small percentage.
Oh, really?
Dennis, I remember you in the old show. You were a little more reasonable.
What did I say that wasn't unreasonable?
You said that we think that men menstruate and no one does. We never even. Had you heard about it?
I'm a doctor. I missed that one, I confess.
And this is one of the premier reporters. He knows everything. These people are very. He's a doctor.
Okay.
He's one of the great.
I would make a friendly bet that the LGBTQ normative statement is men can menstruate. To say that men can menstruate is a lie, and that is what is said.
Yes. Wait. Where did that?
You never heard.
There you go. And we know, for example, on critical race theory that Bill Maher is all up against, that came directly out of identity politics that he never objected to since he's become a wide-known personality in the 1990s.
No, he helped build all
doing
this.
his show. He helped build all of this.
Yep.
And now it's like, oh, I don't know where it came from. It's all of a sudden just appeared. In 2019, that was being said. We know it.
Yep.
So unless Bill Maher is claiming he's completely ignorant as to what the news is every day, then he wasn't being intellectually honest at that point. He just couldn't defend it. There comes to a point where, okay, I can't defend this. This is just crazy. Maybe it'll change. And it didn't change.
Right.
It just became stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And I just wanted to play that because I thought it came up at a great time. We were all in this discussion. Maybe that's what happened. The algorithm knew that I was checking all the latest stories. so the Facebook algorithm said, okay, here's another one.
Yeah. Well, and, we've said that about a number of people on the left. Bill Maher's one of them. But it is interesting watching more and more. We played the, was it Gays Against Grooming?
Gays Against Groomers, yes.
Groomers. We played that audio earlier, and you said something 1 year ago that wouldn't have been acceptable.
No.
I mean, not only is there more than one person here, they have a group. That's not a huge group, but they have a name for the group. They have their own mission, and that is to separate themselves from this insanity that's going on and you look at it, I think most people, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it's people are, you go about your life and then you hear something and then somebody comments on it, maybe on a radio show or whatever. And then it's like, yeah, well, whatever. But, and then all of a sudden it's here. And you go, I'm sorry, what are they doing? What are they promoting? What are they legally fighting for at the Department of Justice going after the state of Tennessee? What is this that they want to do to kids? You and I said it in the whole Loudon back and forth. We started there with, on that issue. I mean, we go back years on this, but we said something very specific. You're not going to win this with parents. And what did we ultimately find out? That the Department of Justice needed to essentially get involved and go after parents and deem them dangerous for showing up to a school board meeting. They had to weaponize the Department of Justice to try and shut down the pushback. It didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because of the sheer numbers. And you don't have to be a parent. This is the thing that I am encouraged by. That you don't have to be a parent in order to be outraged by this kind of behavior. You don't even have to be a conservative. You don't have to vote Republican. Because this is not a political thing. Now, the Democrats are making it their political thing, and there is that back and forth. But with all of us, the rank and file, in our everyday lives, the majority of people look at this, and you said earlier, you believe the majority of Democrats, rank and file, are against this whole grooming thing. I'm with you on that. I agree on that. But the far left is hell-bent. And they're not going to win. They absolutely will not win this. This is not a hill they are going to be able to claim with any flag ever. It's just sick.
Yeah, I mean, it's two reasons, because I got into a few discussions over the last couple of days. I think, number one, Dave Chappelle helped change the direction of it because,
yeah, I agree.
For years, we were talking about it and other conservative talk show hosts, but the mainstream media basically ignores what we're doing. They don't want to cover what we're doing because they can't argue with it.
Mm-hmm.
When it got into pop culture and Dave Chappelle did it and started going after the insanity of the liberal transgender radical movement, then they had to take notice because the attacks came in big time that he can't be doing it. Then, of course, the whole Disney thing came along, and you were the one that said, these people aren't that smart. They think, this is Disney against DeSantis, and it's not. It's Disney against the parents.
Yep.
And that's the same thing in Loudon, Virginia, which, again, when they came out and, domestic terrorists, the FBI agent whistleblower saying, there I am sitting in a school parking lot taking license plate numbers, and I knew what I was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
From parents who are upset about critical race theory and the insanity of critical race theory and the insanity of the liberal radical transgender activist movement.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing here? This is about the normal debate you have on the issues, and the federal government wants to get involved and monitor these people.
When you become an agent, you are there for justice. And it's like a lot of careers. Young teachers go in thinking that, you have these big dreams, and it's great. It's great that people go into those career fields. But when you walk into the FBI, you learn a lot of things immediately during that training. But then beyond that, and I have family members that have done that. But beyond that, you're there because, like most everyone in law enforcement, with the exception of people like Comey, you believe in justice. And then you're given that assignment. Are we shocked there are whistleblowers? I wonder how many would come forward if not the fear of losing their job or retaliation, or even, worse. I mean, we're learning about one whistleblower fearing for their life. But I wonder. I have no doubt it would be impossible to convince me that there aren't multiple, and I mean multiple agents that are in situations where they go, okay, this isn't right. Based on what has been happening in recent years. This is the weaponization of the Department of Justice.
Yeah. And that's why no matter what, if Trump is indicted on this whole thing, the Department of Justice, and it doesn't matter with the special prosecutor,
right?
The Department of Justice, the suspicion of partisanship behavior and the evidence that exists is so great that nobody's going to buy it.
No one.
No one's going to. No,
it's you're in terms of the court of public opinion,
right?
This is a hard sell.
I would say, especially when you look at Trump-Russia collusion, that the entire government of Democrats fell in line with the lie for a 3-year period, something like that. You think about all of these things are unprecedented in all of American history.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever been close to this before.
Right.
And they believe they can walk in this with credibility, and the fact is they can't.
No,
they have no credibility.
And it goes straight to the top in terms of the political negative effect. It goes straight up to Biden.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so
of course it does. Yeah.
Trump absolutely loves this idea of, once again, being the victim of the weaponization of the Department of Justice and everything else. We can talk about the legal ramifications and how the case is going to go politically.
Yeah.
You're just not going to convince people. You're just not going to convince them.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I was chuckling because I just saw the headline about Chris Christie. Why is he running? The 2 points are: does he really believe he has a chance, or is he just there to attempt to knock out Trump? Is he going to be the pit bull? Just only goal is to not, that he knows he can't win, but. Now, I don't know why you would do it. I don't know why you'd go in just to attempt to knock off somebody. What drives you to do that?
Right.
And how you can get any type of fundraising if it becomes known inside your campaign that that's what you're really about. I mean, I don't know how many people want to join a campaign for that particular reason. Most people who join campaigns want to win. I just find it interesting that that's the narrative that you read out there everywhere. Why is he running? To knock off Trump, or does he actually believe he can win? And a lot of criticism thrown at Pence saying, why is Pence doing this? I mean, do they actually believe that they can win? What is the point in doing that? What does Pence bring that the others don't bring that can get him elected?
Yeah.
And again, not saying, look, any of these candidates would be a better president than Biden. That's not the point. The point is dealing with, why are you running now in the primary that you're running in? Because it's not the general election.
Right. Well, that's, I didn't think of Christie as being that guy. I actually, in my mind, had this goes back a ways, that Mitt Romney might jump in only for that reason, to be on a debate stage with Trump and go at him. But it could be that maybe Chris Christie thinks he needs to be the bulldog here, but he says he's going to be the nominee. He's actually said that out loud. I don't see that happening.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.